Thank you very much for the invitation. I've been talking about shitstorms all week, so this is a really great chance to talk about the more delightful side of social media, the more positive side of social media. And working with employee advocacy and digging a bit into all the different reports and analysis about this this topic, it gives me a really good feeling inside, because there's so much potential in employee advocacy, both internally and externally. So I'm not here to necessarily root for the product or anything, but just based on my knowledge and the work I do with companies and organizations, I really believe that employee advocacy has a huge potential. And it's very easy to get started with employee advocacy. You can actually start right now, share stuff from your company or whatever you like, or you can go home tomorrow and start talking with your co-workers and your boss about how can we actually be a part of this new, very interesting way of using social media. So the topic today is, now let me just start with how to do social business. So the topic today is how to do social media. It's how to do how to do business on social media. I'm sorry, I can't read my own slides. How to do business on social media, and then employee advocacy. And the two, of course, connected, because if you want to do business, who's better to promote your product and promote your business than the employees? So that's basically how these two are connected. Just shortly about me, I've been working with social media and the digital stuff for the last 10-12 years, mostly in the political field. And for the last almost 3 years, I've had my own company where I consult organizations and companies about how to use social media, employee advocacy, shitstorm management, and all these great things. And I've written a few books, most of them in Danish, but one of them is also in English, DIY Social Media Content Strategy. Enough about that. So if you want to do business on social media, you shouldn't start with the product, you should start with how can we create value for the users. So a lot of companies, when they start using social media, they think, oh, we have this great product, let's talk about that. But most people don't really care about your product. What they care about is themselves or their friends and their networks or their families or maybe their workplace. So this value ladder is intended to take you from this step one and look a bit further up the ladder, not talk about your product, maybe give a bit behind the scenes, learn about our business, but more and more move towards step 4, where you ask, how can we help you with your passion? So how can we help you get the next interesting job, or get more spare time, or balance between work and spare time, and all these kind of things that we actually care about as human beings or employees or just private persons. And then on step 5, you ask, how can we change the world together? So as a company, you set an agenda that's bigger than the brand, bigger than the individual user, but actually we want to do something in this world. We want to change something, or we at least want to put this topic out there to change the world. Maybe not the whole world, but just a small part of it, maybe just a small region. We actually have a purpose here. And looking at what kind of communication works really well on social media, and also if you look at what younger employees, these so-called millennials and so on, they're looking for purpose. They're looking for a company that has the courage not just to talk about the products, but also actually to want something, to want to make some kind of change in this world. So that should be the basic, or the basis where you want to do social media selling. How can we actually help people with what they are passionate about, and how can we change maybe just a small part of the world together with our customers and users on social media. And moving towards employee advocacy, you can say, of course, you can just go out there and buy a lot of reach on social media. So this just shows that usually we talk about, fans and friends of fans if we put something out on social media. But today, with all the different marketing tools, you can just basically promote your stuff to different target groups on Facebook. And that's very valuable, but of course it's also the more expensive way to go. And looking at these 3 different trends that is going on right now on social media that I'm working with, and I think is really interesting to look into as a company. they all point towards the advantages of working with employers. So the first one is that people prefer people instead of brands. People would rather click on a link that a friend of theirs has posted on LinkedIn, for example, that comes from a company brand. So people want to see other people in flesh and blood. So can you get your employees to be the center of your communication? It's way more effective than when it comes directly from the brand. The second trend is people want to see visible leadership. That's both internally in the organization. Nothing motivates the organization more than the leadership being visible also externally on social media. And the last one is that we move from this earned to paid media. That is, social media is no longer a free lunch. You have to pay to get your stuff promoted on Facebook and LinkedIn. And that, of course, can be very good, especially if you have a big budget and you know who do you want to target with different kind of messages. But the other way to come around it is, of course, to have more people share and promote your stuff, because then you'll get more earned media still on social media. So looking at this, this is a part of a bigger analysis that is really interesting, and I put the links in the slides, and if any of you want to go further ahead with this and maybe convince your boss or whomever that this is the way to go, I really recommend digging into these reports, because there's so many great stats in there. I just took a few of them to share with you today. So where do employees actually share stuff? Most people share stuff about their companies on Facebook, then Twitter, and then LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and so on. Probably surprised to see that 26% share on Google+. I don't know. Must be some kind of like auto feed. Doesn't make much sense. But definitely that Facebook is the biggest one. I think for a lot of companies, Facebook is kind of like no-go in terms of employees. I typically recommend start with LinkedIn, because you can easily get your co-workers to share something work-related on LinkedIn instead of on their private Facebook. So start with LinkedIn, maybe Twitter, and then depending on the company, of course, you can also look into Facebook. And why do employees share? I'm not going to go into details with all these different statements, but basically what this one is saying is that it's a win-win situation. So they share because they want to do something good for the company. They share because they want to look good themselves. It's personal branding. So it's kind of like, yeah, this is shared benefit. Both parts get something out of it. And this one, of course, you can't really read it, but the point is that it's very important with visible leadership. So the top reason, the top motivation for people actually to share something on social media is that the leaders show the way. The number two motivation is that their employers give them some kind of feedback. So it's really important that your leaders, the C-suite, understands the importance of being visible on social media, of actually using these and applying these tools themselves, and not just say, okay, this is something for the marketing department or the communication department. Because the more visible they are, the more people they can get on board, and the cheaper it will be for them to get publicity or to get, to sell stuff through social media, basically. The third one is written guidelines and so on. So you can basically take this list and use it as a to-do list of what do we need to do in order to implement our employee advocacy program. Okay, we need leaders on board. They need to give feedback to the employees. We need written guidelines. We need to provide content and so on. A lot of great advice to how can you actually move forward with these things. Another really interesting thing I've noticed is how do you motivate leadership? How do you motivate the board of directors to actually go on LinkedIn, for example? I think that's the easiest place for them to start. Just recently I found this ranking on LinkedIn. It's probably been around for some time, but LinkedIn has a tendency to hide all the good features very odd places. But in this feature you can go and see how do you rank in your network. And I had this board of directors last week who got into this really fast. And when one said, oh, I'm the top 10% and the other one in the top 25%, they were already very much into improving their LinkedIn position. So that's just a small tip if that works with your leaders. And even for employees that might work, it works for me definitely. I'm now in the top 2%, and I know that's not good enough. Of course, I need to be in the top 1%. But I make this excuse that I think within my network there might be a lot of really active people, so I think I really have to step up to reach the top 1%. So that's a way of also like putting some measurement into it, because I think with some of these things like employee advocacy, it can get a bit fuzzy. So how do we rank it? What is the KPIs and so on? So this is a easy and free tool to actually get started on measuring how do we actually perform in our own network. So what do we share? On a daily basis, I work mostly with the content. How do we create great engaging content on social media? Because no matter what you want to achieve, whether it's your brand social media channels or whether it's your employees, you need great content. And people, of course, share most job postings. It's really good. It's really popular, and people get a lot of engagement on these job postings. So make sure that the people have access to actually sharing these job posts really easily. Then there's daily workplace life, like office pictures, company accomplishment, news about the company, community involvement, products and product information. So you can actually see products is only in some 25% of what people talk about on social media. And I think actually one that is lacking here is news in the business news. So if you're, for example, in the insurance business, you can share stuff that's going on in that business. You don't have to talk about yourself and your company all the time. So I think for a lot of places, it makes really good sense to have some kind of guidelines in terms of content, or at least educate or train people to see and get the idea of what is great content, and of course also provide them with this great content so they can easily share it. What content works? Probably not a surprise to a lot of you, but just to say it doesn't have to be really advanced. Of course you can do 360 degrees video and live streamings on Facebook, but you can also just make sure that you put on a picture, or that you have video that people can actually share with your CEO or whatever about the product. You have infographics, and in the end the headline that you actually use on the article or in your update is probably the most important thing. This one is when your boss is terrible at leading meetings. Who's not clicking on that one? We all know this situation, you know, something about the terrible boss. Apart from me, I'm my own boss, so I know this is true in my company. And then, of course, bring in some personality, some storytelling, and some emotions are always good. And this might be a trigger to some of the people who are more conservative and might not be used to communicating. So I think also that's a big challenge, that you probably come from a marketing or communications department where you see communication as a natural part of being a human, but you have to motivate and encourage people who are not used to communicating at all. So how can you make it so easy and smooth for these people to actually communicate about their daily lives and show them the good examples about what actually works and how can we increase our reach, and of course also what is then the effect. And one of the things that I always do when I look into what's working on social media is try to find the good examples. So both, of course, internally but also externally, learn from the best. One of the features that I really like on LinkedIn, also not very used but more and more people are using it, is the blog function. So it's a built-in function in LinkedIn where you can actually blog. This is Richard Branson, and he's of course like beyond, and probably has some people helping him with writing these blog posts. But they have this kind of like personal feel. You have this feeling that he has actually considered things and also put some thought into what he wants to tell about. So it's a very simple and easy way actually to tell what are you working with and also position the company. I think I have a few Danish examples as well. This is Mikkel Grene, who's the CEO at Søstrene Grene, who is, I think, at least all the, they say they have mostly female customers, so there's all these small things you can buy for your house and so on. And they are an international company with stores in more than 60 countries, Japan and so on. And Mikkel, he uses LinkedIn here to talk about the company results. And quite a lot of people, actually just over 100 people, like that they have the 50% turnover growth, blah, 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 very good numbers. people like that. And here he talks about we opening a new store in the Netherlands, blah, blah, blah. So it's not rocket science, and it doesn't have to be something that's really beyond. People actually tend to be very grateful and also like stuff because it comes from the network. So all these people like it. It might be employees, it might be competitors, and it might be people just within his network. But it all counts because the more likes and shares, the more will spread organically. This is another example, Ken Kerry from ISS, who has a video here about how they communicate with their 500,000 employees and use storytelling to do that. So it's an internal thing, an internal process with strategy and so on, employees, that they can tell about, and then he can tell about on social media. So for a lot of other people, what you do inside the companies might be interesting to share as well. And of course here you have to provide the CEO or the employees with these videos and help them make this content. So, of course, there's a lot of I think a lot of this, if you like to be on social media, if you like to share stuff, then you think, okay, of course it's natural just to do it, and of course also share stuff about your company. But also I think if you need to invest in this, you need to invest money and time, and also the employees' time. Of course you need to know what do we get out of it. And internally, it can help you actually get your strategy and get your vision, get it known internally, because a lot of what is going on social media, for example, if the CEO is communicating on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, it will be internal. And also you can use social media then to share what vision and what strategy are we actually working with in this company. And I think a lot of companies, they have this problem with getting the vision or the strategy known to a broader audience. And also, of course, recruitment. I think that's one of the low-hanging fruits, to use social media and to use employee advocacy to recruitment. You can save money, you can get better candidates. And also, if you use social media for recruitment, these recruitment posts or job positions is one of the few places where you can actually brag as much as you will about the company. So you can show like the most crazy video about this company has so many employees, we existed so long, and this is what people say about us, because you want, of course, to make yourself look interesting in the eyes of future employees. But don't just think about a post about a new job position as something that is directed to the people who's actually looking for a job. It might be directed to everybody else, all your stakeholders. So whatever information, whatever strategic topics you want to put out there, you want to people, your brand, what you want people to say about you, put that in these job positions as well, and make sure to make the content appealing. So make an infographic or make a video, just do something a bit more than the usual job post. And also actually several reports points towards that when people share on social media, whether it's the leadership or just employees sharing on social media, it actually serves as an extra motivation. They get more motivated if they share news about the company. They get more motivated for working at the company. So it has this really positive spin on it, that the more you do it, the more excited you actually get about working for that company. And also it's a fairly simple way for the leadership to give the employees recognition. For example, if they like a post they put out on Facebook, or they retweet something on Twitter, who doesn't like to give some kind of recognition from the boss? And that's an easy way also to spread that kind of recognition into social media. And last but not least, when people start working with social media internally and get more employees and the leadership on social media, they improve their digital and social skills. And you might be like, yeah, why is that important? But if you want to make sure that you have an organization that is adapt, that is ready for the next coming years and the next waves of digitalization and disruption and all these kind of things, as a minimum, all the employees should be able to use LinkedIn. You know what I mean? It's like, if you have a CEO that's not able to use LinkedIn, it's like, okay, so we have all this, disruption and all these kind of things going on, artificial intelligence and so on, that might change the whole company. Maybe we should just start with being able to use social media that has been around for 10 years now. Externally, of course, and that's where we usually have the focus, but I would really encourage you to make sure also to have these internal goals, because that's actually where I can see a lot of the benefit coming from as well. And that's not usually what people focus on, because they're very focused on the external effect. Of course, the branding, but also the sales. So even though you don't do direct sales, you can indirectly, of course, do sales through social media. And again, it's much more trustworthy if it comes from an employee, like we have this great event, or we just released this great product, or now we celebrate another 10 years of this fantastic company. Make sure that the employees help share that story, because then more people will know about your brand and you'll be top of mind, or at least just be taken into consideration next time they're looking for somebody like you. And then, of course, also the thought leadership. If you want to be known for something, and that could go together with the personal branding, so that's also where you sometimes can talk to the ambitions of the CEO. So what do you want to be known for? Do you want to be the best person within your field? Yes, I would like to be the best person within my field. Okay, at least you can talk about this topic on social media, so that people at least believe that you are the best person on this field. Or have the assumption that you're the best person in this field because you talk about it, you share news about it, you show people that you are actually interested and knowledgeable in this field, and then you become a thought leader. It's not rocket science, it's just about being there and actually doing it over time. And then the personal branding, which is also both for the employees and of course for the CIO, and a very important motivation. Yeah, I think that was what I had prepared for now, but we do have time, I think, for a few questions.
Do we have any questions for Astrid? Yeah. Maybe I have one then.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get the top management engaged on social media and employee advocacy in general? Because what we see is that we start on the middle level, not in the C level. How do we get the top management on board?
That's a very good question. If they're not on board, then it's, I think if you start on the middle level, then it's by showing the results, of course, and being very sharp on what do you want to achieve with this? How can we actually, so what will be the effect within a few months, and then use these results to show the CEO. But I think also in a lot of organizations, you will never get the CEO to use social media actively. So I think the CEO needs to have some kind of like social media DNA, or some kind of willingness, understanding that this is actually important. But I see it more and more, and it's not necessarily about age. It can also be specific businesses where they think it's interesting, and then really talk to the ambitions and the competitiveness that I think most CEOs have. So if their competitor is very active or is using this, or you can show examples from others, I think that would be really good. And then also I think help them make the content. So help them make like videos about them, or with something that they can share. So you can also take them by the hand and show them how this can easily be done. But if you have a CEO that's not open towards it, you can spend a lot of energy not getting anywhere. So that's definitely an obstacle somewhere. I think there's a question over there.
Now I'm a salesperson, and in an old organization with old CEOs, if you can say that. So it's very new for them to use LinkedIn. And you mentioned keep KPIs. Do you know if there's some measurement in this? Like that I have no KPIs in so I have to work a lot, and still they say use LinkedIn, but it takes a lot of time to learn and to practice, is my experience. But do you know if organizations measure salespersons on use of LinkedIn and social
Yeah,
media?
some people do, but not all. I mean, not all. I come into a lot of different companies where they actually don't. They know they should measure these things, but they don't actually do it. But what you can measure is, for example, how much gets shared, and I mean how far do you reach with this? So what is your shares and what is your likes, and how much traffic do you get to the website? And also, especially if you use the blog function, you can actually see how many people have seen this blog post and so on. So you get some more there. And also, actually, that's maybe back to your question as well. Within your platform, there's also this kind of ranking between employees. So that might also be a way to make KPIs. So you actually rank people against each other. I think some companies that will go, and other companies that will be a no-go. But the possibility is there. But definitely work with some KPIs. And I think my take on KPIs regarding social media is keep it simple. So choose 2 or 3 KPIs to start with. Just keep it totally low key. And then you can always add and make it more and more complicated. But one thing you could actually start doing, which I think is really interesting way to start, and very easy way to start, is to make a survey within your organization. How many people are using different social media. Just to see how many people within your organization, and that could also be within the leadership, are using Facebook. What are the use case for, private or professional? So you actually get an idea about where's the organization. You can also put in the questions, do you follow the company on LinkedIn? Do you follow the company on Facebook? And I've done that in several organizations, and just making this survey is actually creating an awareness, and you have more people stepping up because you can see, okay, maybe I should do something here. So start with that survey, where is my organization rooted, and then maybe set some ambitions. We want more of these people to be active on social media. Next time we ask, maybe within a year or something like that.
What we also see among our clients is there's a big difference. Some companies look on how much value do we create together, and other companies are very individual driven, where they are alike. If you are a part of a company like ours, you have to brand yourself, you have to brand the company, and that's a part of our new strategy. So it varies a lot from industry to industry, how people look at the KPI part. Sure. Cool. No more questions? Then we will say thank you.